It's Liv and Katie with the Six Figure Certified Coach podcast, and we are back with part 2 of our This or That series. So we're talking about this or that. Last week, we talked about higher education or hired now, meaning should I go to college or should I start a business? And today it's like, should I stay or should I go, right? So the Great Resignation, stay at the job, leave the job. How do you decide what's happening? Where did this term come from? All of
Should
this.
I stay or should I go now?
That's what I was thinking too. It's a sing-along episode.
The Great Resignation really comes down to a quality of life discussion.
It does. It comes down to a quality of life discussion, and we have proof.
We have proof. Liv, tell us what is that proof?
Okay. The Great Resignation is a term that was coined in what, 2021?
Mm-hmm.
So it was this big article that came out talking about the surge of employees leaving. And it's like, okay, but why?
Mm-hmm.
And literally most of the variables come down to quality of life. Obviously, low pay. If you have too low of a pay, your quality of life is not going to be as high. Few opportunities for advancement and feeling disrespected in your position. These are some of the main reasons that people left. Having very little access to childcare, definitely a quality of life issue. If you can't afford childcare, or God forbid the whole pandemic, having the kids at home, trying to virtual school, homeschool, and really the lack of flexibility. And now that people know that you can work effectively remotely, to then deprive employees of that flexibility, it's a big no. It's a big no for like millions and millions of people.
Well, it just gets exhausting when you feel like your job is completely checked out to what's actually happening in the world.
Right.
And if inflation is happening, if cost of living is going up, if rent's more expensive, if mortgages are harder to get, like if all of these things are happening and your job isn't being supportive or getting with the program or also increasing your pay, then of course there's going to be a point where you feel like, okay, this isn't actually worth it. If economically it makes more sense for you to stay home with your kids than it does to go to work and pay for childcare, then what are you going to do? You're going to stay home.
And you might not want to be home. Like, let me just put out there, I did not ever want to be a stay-at-home mom. I am not. I really, really had a hard time, very hard time trying to manage. I think when it comes to parenting, for me, it's quality over quantity. I did not excel in that role. Okay. Just being honest. But if you're doing that and working and the money that you actually net on the other side isn't really there, then it's like, well, I guess I could take the whole work responsibility off my plate.
Another big thing was like safety concerns with COVID. Like a lot of people didn't feel like their companies were understanding of COVID. Like they didn't really need to be in the office. They didn't interface with clients, but they were still required to come in. Look, a lot of people like going to the office. I think there's also been like a lot of depression and like lack of social engagement and like social anxiety that's resulted from people not going to the office. I feel like what I'm hearing from my friends is the ideal is a mix, you know, a hybrid mix. If a job hasn't been flexible with you or they haven't been understanding of your circumstances, then certainly like we get it.
Right. And there are, of course, some jobs where you have to be there in person, like literally patient care. It's a tough decision to make, which is, how do I know what to choose? Should I stay or should I go? And all of the factors that play into that. There are a lot of people who are realizing, and this is like a whole subgroup from the research I was looking at, Katie, there's this whole subgroup, specifically women, specifically moms, who have left their job because that actual like childcare gap and what they were making after, paying for daycare and all of this was so small. They figured that no matter what business they started on their own, it was going to be more than that little amount. They would be making more than that. And I thought that was such a like aha moment too, because I think to myself, we talk about 6-figure certified and 6-figure coaches. And of course, like if that's the goal and that's great, but it may also be great to be making a couple $1,000s extra a month, working on a super flexible schedule, doing something that you love.
So it's not a pipe dream anymore to be able to stay home with your kids and also have a job that's on your terms, aka your own business.
Yeah.
And not to like diss network marketing or, these product-based businesses, but that's not the only way anymore either. Like you can actually have a service-based business. I think that women are learning how to monetize their skill sets so much better so that they can do consulting or coaching, and they can do it, virtually, or they can go into the office or an office a few days a week, but it's not a full-time thing. I always think of you because you would always say to me, like, I just need time to think. Like, I just need time on my calendar to think. We do need time to think and time to be alone where someone's not like banging on our door, needing something like those got a minute meetings, or that we don't have meetings back to back where we can't actually think, we can't be innovative in our own businesses. Now maybe you wake up, you get the kids off to school. Not everybody has kids, but we're talking about moms in this scenario. You wake up, you get the kids out the door and to school maybe, and then you work for a few hours by yourself. You get that thinking time, you see clients, and then the kids come back, and maybe your workday is really only like 5 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours where you're like head down working. But as we know, being people, being women, being the way that we are, we're always sort of working. We're always sort of
On.
partnering. We're always sort of momming. We're always sort of everythinging. So you're never really off. Your work time that you're working might look a lot different.
Yeah. And I think that it's the ability to structure it in creative ways on your own terms that make it feel more possible and like more easy to take a deep breath and to actually think. And I do think that when we create these spaces for ourselves to kind of rejuvenate, that's where most of our ideas and our energy to actually execute on those ideas come from. And if you're constantly burning the candle at both ends, it's virtually impossible to excel at anything.
I mean, what we're talking about is like designing your life, right? So like living a life by design. And it is true that entrepreneurs who design their own lifestyle are happier, even if they're making less money. Like I always think about like the cost of the money, right? Like let's say you have a massive salary, but you're really unhappy in your job and you're spending $1,500 a month on therapy, or your spending is out of control because you're so unhappy. That's something to think about, right? Whether you have kids or you don't, or you're going on these massive, expensive 3-week trips because you get 3-4 weeks of vacation a year, but you're so burnt out. Does it actually make sense? It's similar to the childcare argument. Can you make more money? Even if you're making less money overall, are you netting more because you're actually happier and you're not overspending and you're not overeating and you're not overindulging to try to get back to this like internal homeostasis? Like, does your life work? You have to design it in a way that it does.
The pandemic opened our eyes to the different opportunities, right? And it created this like very annoying time, but allowed us to become more conscious of how we're making decisions and are they aligned with our values or someone else's. I remember everyone was like, oh, we're doing our work meetings on Zoom now. And you and I were like, well, we've been on Zoom for like we've been doing our work meetings on
early
Zoom
adopters.
for a year. Yeah, early adopters. We were kind of already doing this remotely, right? Where we would have some in-person time together. We were having these virtual meetings. All of our instruction was online. So I do feel like, we were a little bit more prepared. And I can imagine that for people whose lifestyles looked very, very different, it was a much more rude awakening and perhaps even more jolting than people who were kind of already living this somewhat flexible work at home or work from wherever type of lifestyle.
And we know that this is a trend, right? Like the Census Bureau put out data saying that there's been a surge in the number of people filing tax paperwork to start a new business. It's like up 55% from the previous year. More and more small businesses are being born. And people always come to us and say like, well, what if there's too many? Like, what if it's oversaturated? And the reality is that every time there's a new business that's born, that new business has other needs. If I birth a coaching business, I am now going to need an accountant, and not a big accountant. I'm going to need a small accountant, a small business accountant. I'm going to need a lawyer. I'm going to need a web designer. I'm going to need a brand, someone to help me with branding. I'm going to need my own coach probably at some point or the whole time. I might hire a consultant, right? So every time a business is born, all these other adjacent needs happen. And so it's actually really great for the marketplace for there to be continually new businesses being born. Like Liv said, we've been prepared for this. So this time is good for coaches. More people than ever before are actually hiring coaches as they try to navigate what to do next. Business coaches, personal life coaches, career coaches, health coaches, like all of these people are so needed right now.
Not only individual, consumers are hiring coaches, but also organizations are, because they're actually trying to combat the Great Resignation. They're trying to, put some of their resources to improving the quality of their, employees' work life. I mean, so many organizations are bringing in different types of coaching models to support I don't know how many times last year I got hired by people whose companies were paying for their coaching more than ever.
Yeah, I think that the companies that are paying attention are paying more attention than ever. That's the other benefit of this time. And this pattern of the Great Resignation is that the companies that are going to stand the test of time and are committed to making their employees happy are still great companies to work with. And that's why all the time we see so many of our students who are going through coach training, but they don't want to leave their jobs. For every person that's super unhappy in a job, there is one person that's happy in a job, because it is a 50-50 split. Yeah. And there's so many people that are able to juggle. However, if you're not happy at your job, you don't have to juggle anymore. You're not forced. There's so many options for you to take your skill set and start your own thing.
Absolutely. And I think it is also becoming more respected and welcome too. I don't know how many people I have even known personally in the last 18 months that have started a side hustle, right? Or who've stepped away from a job that they don't like to create something new. I have a friend who started selling fresh squeezed juice. I have a friend who does balloon garlands. I have a friend who does home organization, and these all started as side hustles that have also grown. And I do think that if you're kind of in this, should I stay or should I go mindset, if you do have that passion project, maybe you do stay at your job a little bit longer, pursue this, make sure it's the right thing for you and that you love it and that you want to put, all of your extra time into it. I know I've said this before, but I used to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to work on my coaching business before going to my classroom because I wanted to. It was the fuel that kept me going. It was the most exciting part of my life. If you're in this kind of limbo of, wondering whether to stay or to go, just start pursuing that thing on the side.
And don't worry about other people doing it. I have a friend who started a jewelry company last year with her. Now it's her husband. They were both working full time and they were really hustling. And it was hard at first. They've both quit their jobs. She's pregnant. Pete Davidson was wearing one of their brooches. It's there's a million jewelry companies. We don't need another jewelry company, but they had an idea that was very specific. They had a lot of passion. They had a unique angle and they really believed in it. And then I have another very good friend who has a luxury bag resale company. And there's a lot of those out there. And there's a lot of ones that are bigger than her, but she has an amazing story of how when her dad died, she had to sell her Rolex to pay for her brother's college because they locked all of his accounts, and because that's what they do when someone dies. And it just grew from there. And so she has so much passion for it. She brings so much passion to the table. And it's why is that needed in the world? But she had an idea. She had something that she was passionate about. She had a need where she had to make things work in her life. And I think you and I both just love those stories so much. We hear them from our students all the time of they do something very creative to try to pay for their first month of training or their first few months. That little creative seed of an idea ends up being the whole platform for their business. Be open to possibility and go for your passion, because what you are passionate about is your guide. It's your arrow. It's what's going to lead you to your next thing. Starting IGC was sort of an accident. I just started hosting these like women's circles in my living room. And then people were like, I have friends in other cities that would love to do this. Is there a way to do it online? And then it grew from there. And then Liv came in and helped grow the whole curriculum with her education background, thanks to her master's degree, which we're still up in debate about if you listen to our last episode. So you just don't know. You got to believe in yourself and you got to take those risks.
Do all of those things, follow the next best step, put yourself out there, or, you know, sometimes put yourself in your office or behind doors and actually get it done. I really genuinely believe that wherever you go, there you are. So until you really choose the thing that, this sounds so corny, but like sets your soul on fire, you're always going to come back to that place of like bored or hungry for something, or, you know, unfulfilled or unsatisfied. And it's like, follow the signs, but also you got to jump eventually.
It's like, you don't want to jump off of a cliff.
Don't jump off.
But like, take the like leap across the pond where you're like, I might make this, I might not, but like, I think I can.
Yes. But
don't like just run off of a cliff. Like
if
that's my measurement for risk taking.
Yeah, don't jump off a cliff, but it's like, okay, what big move that's also a little bit safe can you do? Like, I always go back to the Jamaican trip. So when I first
not safe, but like calculated.
When I first hired you, Katie, you said, what are you going to do with this? Like a couple $1,000s, right? For the entirety of the coaching package.
Right. If you don't hire me, what else are you going to do with that
I said,
money?
I'm going to Jamaica with my friends. Easy. I took me 2 years to save up $2,000. Okay. To go to Jamaica. Maybe you're spending $100 going out to dinner every weekend with your girlfriends. What if you said, I can't go out for 2 weeks. I'm taking this $200-ish and I'm investing it in a course, or I'm going to buy that kit so I can start, you know, making the soap or doing the balloon garlands or taking the photos, whatever it is. Right. And it's like, you can make a move like that too, to show yourself and the universe, if you're kind of believe in this divinely guided vibe that I believe in, that you're ready and that you're actually doing something. You have to do something different, shake it up. And if you're still miserable, like keep looking.
Yeah. If you're still miserable, but you're not ready to take a huge risk, take a small risk and phase out. I mean, we are in general fans of phasing out of something before you again jump off the cliff. I was just talking to a friend the other day who has like a lot of deep regret over quitting her job prematurely because it put so much pressure on her to succeed in her entrepreneurial career. And she wishes she had done it differently. Right. So you have to know what kind of person you are. Now, Liv, you like,
I needed that. I would have been bloody dying forever if I didn't have like
but I had a full-time job in 2 businesses for like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
You know, I needed to save. Liv is probably more of the risk taker than I am. And that was what I needed to be able to take risk. It was also a risk, like working 3 jobs at a time. Like that was my whole life.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm actually in a phase of my life where I'm like, God, like I kind of missed out on certain things because I was so serious and so head down on my career for that like 5 to 10 years of like building.
Yeah. But the other thing, Katie, is that some people are so head down for 65 years of their life and then they retire and then they finally start doing what they want to do. So that's a win for you / us. Like, I agree with a hard 2 years, like working a business and a job and babysitting on the side and getting pregnant. Oh God, it was rough, but like, I would choose that rough over sitting in a job I hate until I can cash out on a pension and then like live happily ever after when I'm older.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I want to say is like, we don't know what our capacity is until we challenge it. I remember when I was finishing my book, I was working a lot at the time. Like I was working all day, every day. And then every single night I was writing or editing. And I remember being like, okay, I feel like I'm in finals week, but that was for like a year. Like that was what I compared it to. Or when I was working my full-time job plus 2.
Good thing you went to college. You got that work ethic.
Or I also went back to when I was working in my full-time job and had 2 side hustles. I didn't know what my capacity was until I really challenged it. And I think so many people feel like they're so tired at the end of the day from their like desk job. How are you tired? You've been sitting at your desk, but also I get it. It's boring.
Yeah.
Like you're bored, right?
Yeah.
And so you're understimulated. That's why I always say like starting a business is kind of like having an affair. Start your business on the side. I'm not advocating for affairs at all, like romantic, like relationship affairs. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about have an affair with your new business so that you can bring some of that creative energy into your life, because so many people are like, oh, I would love to start a business, but I'm just so tired by the end of the day. And it's like, no, businesses are created in stolen moments. Like books are written in stolen moments. Like no one has this like fantasy of like, oh, I just was given like $1 million in an inheritance, so I'm quitting my job tomorrow. No one's going to a beach house for a month to write a book. Like this is not how people do things. Like people create during stolen moments and they make it work. They make it happen.
I actually like the affair analogy, even though I'm firmly against it, but I do think it's like, it's that passion and it's that like spark that you can also get from your business or your purpose. That's what it is. People be like, oh my God, you wake up so early and you stay up so late, like at the beginning, but that was like the most fun I had ever had. I was working yesterday morning on a Sunday morning when I don't have my children because I wanted to, because I was excited. You know, I probably won't work at all on Friday. And so, you know, it's not like I work 7 days a week or whatever, but like having something that you love to do, no matter what, whether it's a career in corporate or your own business, it will enhance your quality of life. It's literally proven. What is it? Harvard says 10 years added to your life.
When you feel like you found your purpose.
Yeah.
And I believe that sometimes we have to create our purpose. Like it's not just this thing that we're like looking around, like going on walks to try to find. It's like create it through examining what am I passionate about? What do I care about? And now what can I do about it? Yeah. So to bring this full circle, we're talking about the Great Resignation. We know that why this is happening. People are dissatisfied. They don't feel like they're making enough money to be not staying home with their kids, to be hiring a full-time nanny, to be paying for daycare, et cetera, right? They don't feel like they have an opportunity to advance in their current job. They feel disrespected. Like there are solutions to these things. So if you're feeling this way, you can resign, you can start a business. You could start a business while you're still in your current job. And that would be my vote, right? Is that you start a business while you're in your current job. Liv might say jump off the cliff, but
I didn't jump off the cliff. I just didn't last 2 full years doing it all.
She leapt across the pond. Try something new. Do not sit there at your desk every day daydreaming about how one day things are going to be different. We all fall victim to this like someday story, but it's not real.
We really don't have control over the state of the world. Things are happening so fast. Anything.
Most security you can create for yourself is being an entrepreneur, even if that's an entrepreneur on top of your day job. Like you need something that even if this job goes away, I still know I have other ways to make money and support my family.
Bet on yourself.
Okay. We love you guys.
Love you. Go resign.
See you next week.